literally just told JC that this is probably going to have a messy beginning, some pure gold in the middle, no pressure there, and then a loose end to wrap it up. But we'll do our best. Hey, welcome to the Any Given Day podcast. If you didn't already know, we're going a new direction, and that direction is taking us into a conversation with my very, 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 that's not enough varies, good friend, Jason Clark. Jason, welcome, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Nate. Pumped to be here and honored to be number one. So,
yeah, that's the nice way of saying I was willing to be the guinea pig. So I thank you in advance for that. Hey, man, how was your holiday?
Yeah, really good, man. Having kids in college is a different phase to parenting. When they're younger, you can hit the road, travel. Everybody's kind of all about it. When they're in college, though, they come back, they want to hang with their friends and, see everybody they haven't seen. So, travel was out the window this year, which was okay. We still escaped out to the beach house for a few days and,
Heck yeah.
hung out on the beach. But other than that, it was great. Spent time together, no complaints. Nobody was sick. And, just had a good time.
Dude, just keep taking those fatherhood notes so that you have all the advice for me as Lachlan continues to grow. Because you got him at every age right now, and you're crushing it. And so I'm gonna need some input.
Yeah. That book, I think that manual should just have a ... on the cover, and then kind of a question mark underneath of it. So.
Hey, that's all right. As long as you're probably asking more questions than you're answering it, but that's part of the journey, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, even, when it comes to the fatherhood thing, I think the only thing that always at the front of my head with the kids is just be present, be real, and don't overreact, because it's all just a moment in time. So.
Dude, weird metaphor, but Megan right now has been on the, speaking of journeys, on a sourdough journey. And so she's, creating this sourdough starter, which, by the way, she has a name. Mary is the name, which I guess is supposed to help you not forget about her. And, we're I don't want to say 0 for 2, and I shouldn't say we, but I'm here for moral support, but 0 for 2 on the actual baking of a loaf, but both made something edible, just not ideal, with regard to Megan's expectations. And something that I said to her the other day was like, yeah, but you're figuring out the process. You're continuing to refine the process, have faith in that, trust in that, and the outcome will come. Yeah. And I think no doubt this is something you and I've talked about with regard to like kids, right? Like how much are you investing right now into your kids? And in the moment you're like, oh, right. But in the, to be determined what actually comes of all this effort on your end.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. And I think that to your point, and it's kind of cliche, you hear it more often now, but tying yourself to the outcome that is, not known, unforeseen, way too many wild cards, that's tough. Tying yourself to the process and being consistent within your moral compass that guides that process and the boundaries you've created within it. I think that's everything. The rest of it is still human nature, right? Like, especially with kids, they're humans. They're gonna do stuff no matter what you've done, and that's okay. We did the same thing.
I was just gonna say, if the life that we led is any indication, then we're in for it, to say the least.
Yeah, my mother and I, I'll say this because my mom doesn't. I was the only child, and she doesn't really get into childhood much, except like, you were so high. What did she say? You were always so high ADHD. Even your grandfather used to say, like, isn't there a medication for this kid? And but all to say, she sent me, in her older age, sent me a reel this morning on Instagram, and it was it said, gentle parenting is for gentle kids. And it was a mom like dragging the kid across the football field because he wouldn't listen. And she was like, does this look familiar? And I was like, oh, yeah.
You're like, yeah, I've been on both ends of that.
Exactly.
Dude,
accurate.
you gotta send me that. That's definitely
a good
one. Dude, so speaking of medicine, I think
Mm,
the military provides a pretty good medicine.
mm.
One that you and I have both taken a decent dose of. It's funny, as much as I do know, I actually realize that there's way more that I don't know about your time in service. Man, would you be willing to just I guess give me sort of I don't even want to call it the cliff notes, but just like the high notes, the low notes of some of your time spent in the Marines?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Sure, man. A decade of, my life was dedicated to the United States Marine Corps. And absolutely loved it. I'll say behind the scenes part that actually makes this story what it was, right? Is I was an overweight kid. It's not that I wasn't active. It's just I knew nothing about nutrition, and genetics were not my friend in that world of I could not get away with eating whatever I want. So anyway, long story short, overweight kid kind of figured it out in boot camp of like what this world was. Came to boot camp about 185 pounds, left boot camp 130 pounds, and really
Whoa.
Yeah, yeah. Put myself on a diet. You know what I mean? Like it's just really kind of culminating event of like, this is who I'm going to become. Is this just kind of probably way too OCD and way too, dedicated to this world. But yeah, man, at that point in time, I said to myself, I got two goals. I wanted to be a drill instructor and I wanted to be the sergeant major of the Marine Corps. And that was kind of my mentality. For 10 years, I ran fast. Obviously, we went to war shortly after I joined, and that took care of a few years of time frame. I always joke, I've told you this before. I left the United States in like January of 2002, came back to the United States for the first time in March of 2005. And, just because my time out of deployment, we would go to Asia and I didn't, nobody was taking leave really. We were just doing pump to pump. And, but anyway, I came back to America and people had cell phones on a regular now. There was a guy named LeBron James playing basketball. Um, all to say from there, again, my mentality was still the same. I wanted everything the Marine Corps had that it had. I wanted to go take it. And, got to go to Quantico to the martial arts instructor trainer school, which at that point in time was it was known as the toughest school the Marine Corps had to offer, physically. The day before graduation, the director of the school, great forever mentor in my life, Colonel Shusko, asked, did I want to be on staff? I said, sure. Stayed there for about 6 months, went to the drill field. Spent 4 years as a Marine Corps drill instructor. I was there as we increased from 175,000 to 202,000, which, I say that most people don't correlate, but that was one of the biggest changes I've ever seen in the Marine Corps. And probably one of the biggest changes that'll go down in history was that increase of personnel. Absolutely loved it, man. In the midst of that, a thing called a tattoo policy came in the Marine Corps. And obviously, I'm wearing long sleeves today, but those that know me know I'm tatted all the way down to my hands. It would not cost us a promotion, quote unquote, but it would cost us billets. All to say, my idea of being the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps was no longer feasible. And I woke up one day, about 9 days until I needed to make sure I raised my right hand again. My package was done. I just had not reaffirmed my oath. And I was like, you know what? That's it. I want to love the Marine Corps. And I'm not going to love it if I stay in. And yeah, so there goes. There was a decade right there. High notes of it, man, was the Marine Corps for me was probably everything I needed in my life. Good, bad, or indifferent. It taught me all the good. It taught me all the bad. I would say I've never seen such a professional organization that is so immorally wrong as well. Nothing against it. It's just it's the way it operates. The organization was founded in a bar. It's still near and dear to its roots. But yeah, man, absolutely love my time and God bless it all. But yeah, there's 10 years in hopefully about 120 seconds.
Leave it to the military to be looking to increase numbers and then at the same time create a policy that drives some of your best people to the exit gates. Like makes no sense whatsoever, but I'm also not that surprised.
Yeah. I think that the healthiest thing I did in that point in time was much like my opinion of you know, you and I've discussed this, and I know, we won't drop in this one, right? But it's like when I was in the Marine Corps, I didn't vote for a president. I'm not tied to who that is. I'm tied to following the orders and directives. My opinion of who that is, I'm not paid for. Much like when the tattoo policy came out, I was upset, but I quickly removed myself from the idea that this organization is much bigger than me. I follow orders and directives, and got it. So yeah. interesting moment for sure, but to your point, I'll never quite understand it, um, because most of Parris Island looked like me
Yeah.
with tattooed on the arm, so it was interesting time frame.
Was gonna say, I know I have an idea in mind when I think Marine, and, a plethora of tattoos is definitely a component of that idea.
Yeah,
What,
yeah.
man, given your time, deployed in combat prior to being a drill instructor,
Mhm.
is there a piece of that time that you really took with you that you felt shaped your time, on the drill field?
Ooh, yeah, sure. I've looked back in time now to understand what I was doing. I didn't make Marines. I made warfighters. But our task was to make Marines, and I'm not sure we had it right with coming straight from the war with zero anything. Report to drill instructor school. Go train. And when you looked at those kids, right, it was, and I say kid, I was a kid, but when you looked at those young men in front of you, it wasn't a question of what was next. It was more a question of when is your time overseas coming? And so, what I took from you, especially, as with all the things you see, right? The death, the chaos, the moments that change the course of people's lives, literally. You trained them with that mentality, that this isn't a game to me. It's not a gimmick. Um, this is people's lives, including your own. And yeah, so I'm not sure it was we were the greatest group to be there to train, the the next generation. And I just say that because man, we were so young and so much into when war. I think one thing I think about is when war starts, you don't know the end of it, and you almost get stuck into kind of like it's in it. This is forever. So it's not like you're worried about other skill sets to help them become the Marine that lives in the barracks or the Marine that you know um, goes to the chow hall or the Marine that conducts himself good on liberty. All of that was a byproduct of no. You're a young man that's going to listen to all orders and directives given to you because it's going to cost someone's life if you don't. So. I definitely took a lot of what I would say is just the moments of chaos and trained recruits with moments of chaos. Um, Good, bad, or indifferent.
How were you able to, man, to go from like shaping the warfighter, and this is going to be a leap, but I know we got to move this way because
Yeah.
if we don't, we won't.
Yeah, fact.
How'd you take that to the other side of service, into the civilian side, and into, for example, coaching, and some of who you're coaching, I'm guessing
Mm.
is not the warfighter. So
Yeah.
how do you kind of maintain, like, how do you take, I don't know, I don't want to call it the same purpose, but like that sense of purpose and apply it within a different setting to totally different personnel?
Yeah, man. Obviously, as you know, that idea of transitioning from the environments that we transition from and the institution out to the back to the civilian world. What I took from it was that I have already seen, in my opinion, the highest level and the worst levels of stress that could be thrown into my life ever. So, even in the civilian gyms, as I got going into it, clients coming in with a bad day. Uh, oh, the kids didn't get ready this morning. I was just honestly, I was so green into that world. You flip the switch, right? Like the day is only bad if you give a moment. It's that entire day. It was a bad moment. Recover, rebound, get back on track. Um, so, honestly, I didn't change much, right? I was still very, kind of like my wife jokes now, on your tombstone, we'll say all gas, no brakes. And, uh, and that was so much of that, right? It was like, even to the civilian world, honestly, it was just to give as much as I could give to the people that were in front of me. And honestly, that was what the Marine Corps was. I wanted to give away anything I could to the people in front of me simply because if I've been gifted it, let me try to give it to him. It's not that I was great at anything, but what I knew was we collectively as people are designed to be here together. And the best thing we could do is give whatever we have to the population that we're serving. And all I did was transfer that into the civilian world. Of course, a little different flavors, right? You're not regulated by. I didn't have to have a shave anymore. I could stay out at the bar in 3 a.m. and call in tomorrow if I wanted to call in tomorrow. All
Yep.
that was a little different, but at the same time, that made us pros as well, whether we liked it or not. Was you could stay out at the bar at 3 a.m. and still be at work with your first client at 5:30 in the morning. So, yeah, I think that was it, man. Nate, to answer your question, it was to teach that population that, hey, first and foremost, it's not a bad day, it's a bad moment. Um, and secondly, let's continue to give what we've got to each other, nonstop.
Part of giving is you have to have something to give.
Yeah,
And so if you think about when you first join, you don't have much in terms of probably life experience. You don't have much in terms of skill set. And so what you're given is your attention and your energy, right? To
absolutely.
to put yourself in the learner's shoes and
Yeah,
start to hone this craft and start to become, kind of something bigger than you were. And then you
right,
get to this point where you've amassed this skill set and you've honed it and you've got some experience through, combat and other type of situations. And then you're put in this perfect drill instructor world where you can, continue. Now you can give in a different way,
right.
right? You're given to that person who's given you their energy and their attention. And then similar as you segue then into civilian, like you're probably lacking in certain aspects, but you have other pieces to give. Now at the same time, one thing I've always admired about you is that you're simultaneously doing both. You're still giving attention and energy to continue to evolve as a human, continue to evolve as a professional, as a coach, as, quite honestly, even as a friend and father and all of those other things, right? And so, can you kind of speak to, I guess, your mindset around learning and continuing to evolve and to be a student at the same time that you are, a teacher, so to speak?
Yeah, I think it starts with, it looking at the end game, right? And I'll say that's death. I think for generations prior to us, age and certain different things that happen in life meant certain things, right? Like, well, you're a father now, you're a married man now, you're a ex now, and that meant something about how you lived the rest of your life. I don't know, death for me, I just put it as a, kind of like we joked about in the beginning. I put it as a dot dot dot. And what I mean by that is I'm not fixated on when that is. What I'm fixated is that I never find the peak of who I am, of whether it's business, whether it's being a husband, whether it's being a father, being a friend. I don't want to find the peak. I want to continue to find the next level of performance, and that first starts with mindset. Right? Is that I'm not going to settle that my 40s meant I start to lose muscle mass. I mean, if you fixate your mind on it, sure, I guess it does. Guess what? I'm not going to do some yearly test to tell me my muscle mass deteriorated. Um, I'm just not going to. But what I am going to do is I'm going to constantly look at just how to be better. Um, and I come up short on that all the time. There's no doubt, right? Whether it's laziness or whether it's maybe procrastination in different times. But I think for me, just the mindset of not caring when I die um, is the start of it. And what I mean by that is that could be tomorrow, but I can't care. What I can only care about is the process that I don't ever find the peak. And I hope I ring that true, honestly. My plan is I joke with my children all the time, like, hey, when I'm 65, I still am going to suit up and absolutely destroy you in any sport we recreationally play together, and they're always like, aha, and and look, that's my mindset. It may not be true. I don't care, but I'm still going to be upset if I don't win because it was my mindset. I'm not setting myself up for failure to be like, oh man, I'm in my 40s. I'm slowing down. Absolutely not. I am still picking up speed. So,
And I've seen a video of you out sprinting some kids up a hill to prove that is absolutely true. I think about our parents. And when my parents turned 40, which by the way, my parents at 40 compared to their parents at 40, my parents were way younger than theirs were, which
Mm,
is also why my dad is now, I want to say 76. You know, I think his father died around 71. My dad at 76 is like 20 years younger than my grandfather when he was 71. And
mhm,
I look at us and I think we're even on a next level from that. But I remember back their 40th birthday, my mom had balloons that said like over the hill that someone
yeah,
had got her. And I don't think that's an expression we even really bring up anymore or think about, like, because we're always just like you said, we're looking to compete, we're looking at what's next, we're looking to evolve. Like, how can I continue to progress in this life and continue to have something to give, right? As opposed to say, like, man, the best days are behind me or whatever it is. And, you know, I've never had a narrow enough mindset to really pursue what I would call, say, mastery, right? Like,
mm,
I've never really tried to be a master, but in that same vein, I don't think mastery is a destination anyway, right? Like, mastery is the pursuit, and that pursuit is infinite and it is relentless. And while I don't pursue something specific with regard to mastery, I do think that I am on this journey of relentless pursuit. And I don't, it's not youth I'm chasing. It's to continue to collect stories, continue to push myself, continue to give and continue to grow in the same way that you have, right? And obviously with any given day, I've kind of coined that as sort of like looking to continue to touch the flame, right? So how do I connect some sort of purpose and connection to something bigger than myself, whatever that is, to how I live my life? And so pointing that back at you, and you already kind of started to step into this a little bit, but like, what does it mean to you if I say, hey, Jason Clark, on a day to day, looking to touch the flame?
mm. Yeah, you know, "It's hot, don't touch it," is what we're raised by, right? From the youngest age, "It's hot, don't touch it." And there's certain ones of us, whether it's, hardwired genetics, whether, it's the human nature in us, man, we're gonna touch it. So what I'll say to that is exactly that is, can you go to the areas that you're not supposed to? And I don't mean morally am wrong, or excuse me, immorals. What I'm talking about is, can you do the things that quote unquote maybe you're not supposed to be able to do anymore? Can you continue to challenge yourself and push yourself into new areas? And that doesn't necessarily have to be physically demanding. That could also be mentally and emotionally
No
demanding.
doubt.
Those are my younger years that I did not understand, or nor would I have said if we would have done this 20 years ago, right? But can I be more vulnerable? Can I be more empathetic? Can I go to places in my relationship to open up into my feelings that I don't naturally want to? I can internalize like a champ, just like yourself. We were born into that. Our
Yep.
our first parts of adulthood were built on internalizing and not showing fear, not showing emotion. So, touch the flame, to me, is everything what we just discussed, which is never finding the peak and continuing to reach out and do the hard things that maybe we aren't what we naturally always think we can do, but we're willing to go try. And sometimes you get burnt,
Yep.
and that's okay. It's just an injury, it'll heal.
Yeah. I love that you mention beyond physical, because I think a lot of us are actually, our comfort zone is physical hardship,
Mm,
right? Like, I remember doing, I was like a barbell complex or something when I was a coach at group, right? And like, I wasn't probably the fittest that I've been in my life, but I remember Hunter being like, "Oh, he's going to that dark place," and I remember
mm,
hearing that, and I just like, I loved it because I was like, "Yeah, like that is where I'm going because that's where I am at home."
mm.
But then to your mention, like the discomfort though of some of the mental challenges, some of the emotional challenges, some of the, unpacking and decompartmentalizing and those type of things, like that actually could be a flame that we've avoided gravitating toward for a long time, kind of in favor of the physical challenges instead. And so sometimes as we grow, part of that continuing to challenge ourselves is definitely beyond that physical discomfort.
Yeah, very much. You know, if I didn't marry the woman I'm married to, right? I don't know if I'm who I am emotionally, because she forced me to touch that flame. Right, by having the conversations of like, you have to tell me when you don't like something or if you're not enjoying something, and again, right? It's just not what we're. It's not how we were brought up. It doesn't really matter what you think. And it's kinda like I would tell her, like, "Whether I like it or not, it's happening. So who cares if I like it or not?" Right? And she's like, "Right, but you have to express that. It's healthy." And for a long time, I was like, Whatever." You know what I mean? This isn't healthy. But I will say this, you can internalize for a long time until you can't. And when you can't is when, you react, right? And, unfortunately, most of us have exploded at some point in time. It could be exploded in the bottle. It could be exploded, in the drug. It could be exploded by the way we communicate and yell at people and push people away from our lives because I'm fine on my own. Um, yeah, I mean reality. And I'll say this over when I said we went to the beach house. It's funny. Um, I caught myself at night laying down watching Rambo. And and started at Rambo 1, right? And watching this man walk through a city as a lone wolf and get picked up by the police, and he's sitting here kind of mesmerized by like, these people don't want me. And he goes to the woods where he's gifted at this idea of combat and mentally being here. And unfortunately, I think we all, right? Not just military veterans, but in general, we all have to be aware if we're wired that way. And if that's our safe place, that is not touching a flame.
Yeah.
That is actually running to the most comfort which is to operate how you know. Kind of like many people have said, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So, to your point, man, I do think it is very important for us to emotionally um, touch the flame. And that is hard, very hard.
Dude, and I'm as guilty as any, like, I've had that explosion, and even then, when, like, all the pieces are out there, and everybody's eyes are in your direction, and you can't hide it, you still pick them up and you try to put them back in the bottle, right? Or you try to, "Oh, let me just nothing to see here," kinda thing. It's like, even then, when we're exposed, a lot of the time, we will, like you said, we'll kinda go back to our comfort zone of, like,
Mm.
pushing all that down, and where have you seen, or any specific instances, because you already kinda nailed it from a general perspective, like, some of your peers, stumble, say, post-service, as you have kind of, and a lot of it, yeah, the hard way, but still figured it out and continued to have an upward trajectory to your life?
Yeah. You know, of course, I've seen it, right? Like whether it's the, unfortunate, I'll say culminates in the suicides that we've seen. Unfortunately, uh, the broken marriages, the, DUI arrest, you label it. If I'm made aware or brought into those situations at any point in time, and I say that because again, not everybody wants you to give them a hand yet. If I'm welcomed, I always remind people, man, it's a mistake. It's a moment. You can't take it back. You can't fix it. You can't replace it. However, you can make sure you don't duplicate it. And you can make this moment the moment that you truly become something different. So I think that's the part to it. Again, veteran or not, it's like, man, we're human. I married a couple weeks ago. I was the officiant to the wedding, and they were honestly two of the purest kids I've seen in my life. Like just absolutely pure, good human beings. And the venue they got married at was called Eden, right? And again, I'm very mindful of people's spirituality journey. And I said, so it's kind of fitting, right? Within the Christian story, the beginning of man and woman was in the Garden of Eden, according to the Bible. And it says they were made in a perfect image and they were given everything they could ever need. But the tiniest of objects, a little apple, was what brought down the entire fortress. And I said, told them the same thing, all to say to you, you're going to bite the apple. um, you're going to come up short. You're going to mess it up. However, so did they, and it was okay. You deal with it and you move on. So to, where we're going with with obviously those unfortunately that may make the mistakes. My biggest plea to all of them is Just don't make the same mistake twice. Um, Let it be the launching pad for you to become who you can become.
It's just new information, right? Like it's new information, it's a new input. You got to decide what to do with it to interpret your way forward, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that I mean that's phenomenal advice not only to, you know, folks who are either transitioning or transition in terms of from service into the civilian world, but obviously like kids, newly married. Like I can't think of anyone in the world who that advice is not appropriate for. Like you're gonna mess up.
Yeah.
Know that now. Don't pretend that you're gonna be the one who doesn't, but instead just be prepared so that you can actually move forward in a way where you're not replicating that mistake.
That's it. We were at a New Year's Eve dinner. The family that hosted it, their son and my son go to the Citadel together. And one of the guys that was there at this New Year's Eve, younger kid, he was like, I umpired your games in recreation softball a long time ago. I was like, oh, no kidding, you did. I recognized the face. And he was like, I just graduated and I've got a job at an insurance, and we started talking and everything. And I was like, great. He was like, I think my biggest thing I'm worried about is failure. And I said, I said, got it. I said, but failure to me is an end state, which means there is no coming back. That is the end. There, it is over. There is no recovery. You failed. It is over. I said, so why would you be fearful of that? Um, to me, what you need to understand is you're going to come up short. You're going to not quite get it all right. You're going to have a mistake. You're going to mess it up. That is part of who we are. And that is part of the learning curve that we all need. Is so it's not to be fearful of it, it's to respect it. And again, don't let it become learned behavior if it was habitual in nature. If it's something that was just simply a mistake, you own it. Sorry, sir, mistake, oversight on my part, move on. So all to your point, I think it's just people need to reframe sometimes, man. None of it's failure is in game. It's over. To me, it is over. Don't fail. That's that no. We're all
Yeah.
going to mess it up.
Yeah, you might as well say don't try if you're gonna say don't fail. And
Right.
and I love getting away from labels like that sound absolute and finite. One that bothers me and is the term disabled.
Mm.
So to ask you, like, what is especially with regard to like disabled veterans, I guess,
Mm.
because I think sometimes, and I got to be careful of this because I'm not somebody who's been wounded in combat. So I want to put this question over to you, as somebody who has, experienced a wound within combat. How do you feel about that term, or how have you taken, say, a physical injury from the past and use that to, I guess, as a piece of creating what you are now?
Yeah. 2005, I reported to Quantico, Virginia when I came back to the States to the martial arts instructor trainer schoolhouse. And as I said in the beginning, the director asked me to stay on staff. Cool. My little cubicle, we were only about a 9-person staff, sat right next to another guy named Eddie Wright. Eddie Wright was a reconnaissance Marine that, lost both of his arms from pretty much the elbow joint down, was missing one leg from pretty much the knee down. And mind you, 2005 prosthetics aren't what they are right now. But what I watched was Sergeant Eddie Wright every day put on his boots with his hooks and tighten his shoelaces. And he had figured out how to tie his boots with his hooks. Never heard him called disabled. But I did know him as Eddie Wright, and I did know him as Sergeant Wright. There are people that are disabled, not to take it away from them, right? There are people that can't do certain things. There are people, unfortunately, that are completely vegetabilized or paralyzed, and they are truly disabled. I just go to the same thing, man. You become the story you tell yourself, and you become what you constantly recreate the energy of that you're creating, all the way down to the cellular level. That's truth. That's not, you know, fiction. I mean, our friend Andrew Thompson, right? Stage 4 cancer, battling it for 2 years, and all he talks about is the fight. right? Not that he has cancer. He talks about fighting cancer. He's not disabled. So, I walk, I talk. I've got some scars here or there, right, that left it. I'm not disabled. My piece to anyone: tell your truth in who you want to become, and I'll leave it at that. If who you want to become is disabled, that's your choice. You're a human being. But at the same time, I don't think anybody wants to live their life that way. That's not truly out of the fight.
Man, that is so insanely well said. And yeah, Andrew's not just fighting, Andrew's fucking winning. That guy is
Yeah.
gonna win. Because you want to talk about life becoming the product of the story you tell yourself down to the cellular level. Like,
Yep. Yep. I've got a relative, with a cancer right now, and my mom's in medicine, and I was talking to my mom. I said, "Look, if there's anything I can tell you, just tell her I'm fighting. I'm prepared for war." Uh, she sits there and says, "I've got cancer." You're damn right she does. And I said, it's not to minimize what she has, but what I don't want her to do is fixate her life into the disease and let her become this disease. She's stronger than that. And, I know those that have never, followed it, but Casey Neinhart tactical calories was another stage 4 cancer,
yep.
very similar to Andrews, who at the same, went at it. And Casey and I have no relate, but I watched it from social media and I was like, my man is in war. He wakes up, rides his bike 30 miles, or go, and it's like, no, he doesn't have a disease. He is not that disease. He is at war with something that has came into his body that he did not invite.
And I think that is the hard part is how to frame these things, right? These wounds, these diseases, these experiences, these negative things that folks are at war with. Like, how do you frame it in a way where you're not taking away from the gravity of it? You're not trying to make it, less than it is in terms of your respect for somebody and what they've gone through or what they're going through. It's more a matter of you're just trying to change their perspective to make sure that they're going at it in the most beneficial way that they possibly can. And I think that's really hard. Like, it's extremely hard with the veteran narrative in particular, right? Like, if you throw anything on social media, for example, that starts to creep into a conversation around where people could interpret it as you downplaying what somebody has experienced during their time in service, like, you're dead in the water. You're dead in the water. The sharks are coming. And it's like, even if you're doing it with the best intentions in mind. And so it's definitely something I've pretty much stayed away from for as much as I possibly can. But at the same time, any given day caters a lot and coaches a lot of combat veterans. And like, that's really kind of the primary person who shows up for coaching with AGD. And so in that regard, like, I want all of them focused on what they can do. I want them focused on, being honest about who they are, but also with their eyes on the horizon, right? I always say, like, mind in the moment, eyes on the horizon. And I want that horizon to continue to level up. I want their trajectory to continue to be upward, as opposed to just them living as a result of the past.
Yeah, you're right, man. Sharks are in the water in the vet community, and I get it. However, they're also the most susceptible to, becoming something that they never actually were intended to becoming, because they are susceptible to being molded, especially after their time is up, right? Like, kind of like when I came in the Marine Corps, I remember a gentleman once told me, he said, be careful of the first person that comes to find you when you get to your first unit, because usually they're the biggest pieces of crap and they want people to join them.
Oh
And
man.
sure enough, and it was factually absolutely spot on true. The first individual that talked to me seemed like a cool guy. I was like, oh, wow, this is a great guy. Give me a couple days to work. And, I realized, like, nope, he is absolutely trash, right? And what I mean by trash is just zero effort into the institution.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Veteran space is no different when they get out, man. You have to be careful who the first couple people are that are connecting with you, because people that don't have it, people that are down, or have made some bad decisions that refuse to try to recover from, they want to bring people with them, right? Misery loves company.
Yep.
That is, there's no lie there. And I mean, I have to be careful to get suckered into that, right? And you can legitimize it. Oh man, their story's not like mine, "Oh, man, they didn't have it as hard as I did," or, "Oh, look, I can guarantee you we can all find somebody whose story is way worse than ours."
No doubt.
I guarantee we can find a story that blows our minds away on how it was. So the whole point being, you're right, and I think sometimes the hardest thing to tell people is the truth, and sometimes what we don't wanna hear is the truth, and, sometimes that's what the veteran community needs to hear the most is the truth, and, the truth hurts. Got it. But, at the same time, I think when we go back to even, like, that idea of giving what you've been given, hey, you may only have a moment in time with somebody, and that hard truth you spoke to them, it was what was needed, and, you'll never be friends with them. You'll never connect with them ever again, but it was that moment they needed.
Well, to stick with the truth cliche, right? The truth hurts, but the truth will also set you free, right? And so I
Moment.
think that's part of it is like that, hey, experience this temporary pain, this temporary discomfort, whatever it is. But now you just broke these shackles, right? And now you're free to navigate the rest of life in a way maybe you wouldn't have been without the truth. And hey, part of it too, people aren't always ready to hear the truth.
No.
Shit, right now I have an unanswered text that I sent somebody that I was maybe a little bit too truthful, and that was on a professional front.
Yep.
But still, even then, no doubt that that ruffled some feathers, and I accept that. But I was still willing to share because I believe strong enough in what I said,
Yeah.
and I believe it to be true. Man, I knew it would go this way, and I'm glad it did. You're one of my favorite people to kind of philosophize with and to get inside your brain, which is part of the reason. Not just your willingness to deal with this being a rough draft first run of the Any Given Day podcast, but also because I love seeing inside your mind a little bit, and so I'm excited to get some of it on recording. But to move it, I guess, in a less serious way and touch back to touch the flame, but the one we avoided was physicality because it is our comfort zone. That said, you are somebody who still continues to touch the flame, at least from where I'm standing, with regard to your physical endeavors. So what do you kind of do from, I guess, a training standpoint on a day to day, and then how does that align with your values and with your goals and where you're going? And I know that's a broad question, but really just, I guess, talking physical fitness, touching the flame. Jason Clark, where you at?
Yeah, man. I'm a recovering fitness holic, and my physical fitness masked a lot of my issues for a long time, man. I was more worried about training than I was more worried about, my family at moments in time. I was somebody that never missed a workout, never did anything, absolutely not, man. I can work out 7 days a week, no questions asked. If I miss one, I'm off mentally, blah, blah, blah. That's where am I at now? Man, I'm in probably the healthiest space I've been in possibly my entire life. Currently, for me, I lift strength training wise 2 to 3 days a week. I have 1 to 2 conditioning runs, slow. I say slow, right? That's subjective to everybody, but just low heart rate. I want to move the body for anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on what I've got going on. I have one day that I sprint. Usually that is literally all I do that day is sprint. Whether it's kind of 1 minute, 2 minutes, whatever. And I play a lot, and I try to play pickleball 3 days a week. That is where I'm at currently. And I will say that I absolutely have no problem taking today off. I have absolutely no problem taking tomorrow off if I want to. And that was a lot for me,
Yep.
because my identity was so masked into what I was able to accomplish. Right? Let me not be a runner and go do a 50K. And I think it's all the way back to my childhood. Right? Being that obese kid, I was still masking. You know what I mean? The weakness that was, and so to my point now, man, is this is how I describe my life at this point in time. I want to be able to run over there, and actually I might need to sprint for a moment. I want to pick up that rock and walk across the balance beam with it, and even get to the point where I need to hop across some different rocks on a single leg and get to the other side and place it down. And when I stand up, I'm ready to do it again. Um, so that's the way I describe my training now. I just want to be, that person that can be present And, the pickleball phase, man, has, not gonna lie to you, it has probably ignited a flame that I haven't had in a long time that I also had to chill out a little bit, which is the competitive side of it of,
Yeah.
uh, so yeah, that's where I'm at right now. And, strength training, just to answer, man, it's usually 2 to 3 total body sessions every week and, just built upon foundational movements, man. Can I push, pull, hinge, squat, lunge, rotate, carry, uh, over and over.
Yeah, if I had to add one to your I don't know if we call that a metaphor, if it's literal,
Mm,
but I love the description of from A to B, maybe sprint, carry
mm,
a rock, cross that balance beam, maybe hop from rock to rock. I'm gonna add in there, maybe fall into the water,
mm,
be able to get yourself to shore.
absolutely.
And I say that because 'cause I'm amazed how many people I've ran into recently who can't swim, or at least
Yeah,
can't swim well enough that confidently say yes when I ask them if they can swim. And
yeah.
so I feel like that's a component of fitness that's so important to survival and to enjoyment of, like, what this world has to offer. And I know you can swim well, so that's partly why I bring that up, but so maybe add that into your story.
Yeah, and funny you say survivability, man. Swimming wasn't an option for me as a child. Even as a Northern Virginia kid, right? It's not. I live on the coast now, so swimming is natural. Everybody here swims. But growing up, right, that you had to go to a pool, a rec center or something. But
Yep.
my family threw me in the water at a very young age. Like on the swim team, threw me in the water. I was around 4, and I didn't ever get clarification as to this is why, but my grandfather's sister was canoeing in the river. Her 2 kids fell out of the canoe. She could not swim, jumped in to save them. All 3 of them died.
Holy
Um,
shit.
I have a feeling that was what triggered um, the idea. Like even for me, like as soon throw him in the water, he will learn to swim. No questions asked. So yeah, no, you're right, man. I think all of it becomes important because again, going to the idea of can you limit the amount of incidences that will take you to a net new stress that will take you longer to recover from because you've never seen it before or been exposed to it.
Yep.
I think the more you can do those things in your training, for me, watching this whole craze of extremes in the fitness industry now, right? Whether it's the hybrid era or I'm a strength athlete or I'm a power lifter or I'm a yeah, all
Back to labels.
oh man, right? Hey, again, got it. And I'll go, that's the unhealthy side of the fitness industry, right? And fitness alone is you're allowing a label to basically box in what you do for training. And the unfortunate part is the majority who label themselves are also the majority who are not a paid athlete.
Yep.
So it's all up here that you're doing that for, right? Interesting.
Which, that could be beneficial in some ways, right? Like thinking about somebody who transitioned from maybe they have a goal of running to eventually getting to this like identity as a runner. Like there are positives there, but like with anything, there's like two sides of the coin. And as soon as you are something, it typically implies that you are not something else. And I think that's where we need to be, a little bit careful from the labeling perspective.
So true, man. And I would tell you, been there, done that to all of them, right? I mean, there was a time in the Marine Corps where I was, 270 pounds, and
Jesus.
I was thicker than thick, and all I wanted to do was be able to kind of, I wanted to be that impressive human being that could lift whatever. Gotcha. You know what that got me was a lot of bad back problems and a lot of high blood pressure. So when I say it, I've been to the other extreme, right? And I'm going to become the ultra marathon. All of them were this
Yeah.
fixation of identity. To me, it's like yesterday. I'm at the table. I check my blood sugar. I check my blood pressure in my house. Um, Identity to me right now, right, is health. And
Yeah.
what I mean by that is just I want to be present. And I don't fixate on that idea, right? Of like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. No, but these things are controllable, right? Oh man, my blood pressure is high. Great. You've known that for how long? 3 years. Well, great. There are steps you could have taken to improve that. And it could even be you need to change the way you train.
Yep.
So all to say, to your point, man, you're spot on with what you aren't right? You could be the strongest in the world, but that means you're probably not the fastest in the world. So I guess your world is truly not the world, right? It's a little box that you've built.
G I feel like we need to run this back for a second because you
Mm,
joined basic training at 185
mhm,
as a quote overweight kid. You then leaned down to 130, 135,
mhm,
and then during the same time in service, you hit 270.
mm,
I'm gonna need to check the news to see if, like, there was a red meat
mm,
shortage on the East Coast and a steroid shortage in
mm.
Mexico, because I feel like to hit those numbers, man,
There was a
that
lot of
is
shortages.
that is wild. I hit, like, 190 once, and by the way, I started and finished basic at 145.
Yeah.
The recruiters lied to me. I didn't get swole like I thought I would, but I hit 190 once when I was working with Rob and Hunter, and I was trying to keep up with the big boys, and, like, I felt like trash, first of all. I don't even wanna know what my cholesterol was like,
Mm,
and by the way, what I always say is I didn't squat enough to justify being as fat as I was.
me neither. Me neither. No, man. Hey, look, I'll give you I'll give you the old school how I got big was the yakisoba noodle kits that you used to be able to buy in the PX. So I would eat a yakisoba noodle kit with usually 3 packets of protein, or excuse me, 3 packets of tuna fish mixed into it. I would eat that usually 3 times a day, and I was also taking at the time the Cyto Gainer shakes. I mean, my protein intake would it was legitimately 500-600 grams a day.
Jesus.
I mean, out of this creature, and it wasn't all healthy weight by any means. You know what I mean? Like it was. Uh, but to your point, and go back is like, man, like the extremes that I lived in fitness, that I created identities from, were what led to the most unhealthy versions of myself, because they were so fixated on these identities that fitness had led me to. But it was because fitness at the same time um, had probably been the biggest thing that led me to be this not weak kid anymore, right? Or not this overweight kid anymore. When I checked into drill instructor school, I was, running. I was part of 3 who were in the rabbit group, right? Of the fastest
Yep.
people. It was identity. You know what I mean? You stood on the mountain. I am that guy, or I am that gal. So all to say, I don't know. I don't tell people not to go find that version of themselves. It's okay, but realize that that version of yourself that you're creating this identity around is going to evolve and it's going to change because just human nature, it's going to give way at some point. You are not going to be the fastest young man or woman on the block anymore. So what does that do to you? I don't know.
Yeah, and who are you competing with, right? I think
Mm,
one constant is to maybe compete against the past version of ourself. I think that that's a pretty healthy place to be. I still have a competitive mindset too, and I'll go out and I'll go biking with folks who I know they're going to destroy me, and they should destroy me, and that's what's going to help me level up. But I also still am looking and going, I'm gonna catch you. I'm gonna catch you, and if nothing else, I'm gonna pursue that and use that as a driving force, right? Um,
yep. And I think that, look, I would tell anybody, I would caution anybody that when fitness is their number one in their life, I'll caution anybody. Make sure that that number one in your life, right, is not sacrificing your family. It's not sacrificing, your moral compass, especially in a social age, right? I mean, man or woman, we can post whatever we want to post on the internet and people can message us whatever they want to message us on the internet. Is that putting you in vulnerable places that you shouldn't be at because you got another side of you that can't handle that? Um, I don't know. What I am saying is be careful with it all, right? The identity crisis that comes from it is pretty lethal if you're not built to handle it. And, for me, I put fitness above my family, all right? Oh, they're waiting for me to get back from a run on vacation, or they're waiting for me to get back from the gym for what? Right? For what? I can give all the little one-liners in the world of like, oh yeah, I need to train. Whatever, dude. Like, man, take the next 2 weeks off, enjoy the holidays with your family. It's probably the healthiest thing you could ever do for your fitness and for your family. And that's real. I mean, even Christy the other day, she messaged me. I was at pickleball, in the morning. She was like, "Are you gonna play every day this?" And I was like, You are factually correct right here. In fact, I said, I will be on the way I'm on the way home. She wasn't
Yeah,
wrong, right?
yeah,
Like, I what were they waiting for me for? To play a game of pickleball?
yeah.
Let's be real. So, yeah, I don't know, and to each their own, right? I know that there's plenty of people that'll come at me for that comment of like, "Oh, your fitness is your problem." Got it, man, but I'll tell you what, all of it's fleeting. And, I'll still go back to that. My number one goal has got to be my presence.
Mhm.
And sure, my training equates into that. But it's okay. I can miss a couple days, and be there.
Well, and if you're training to be present, right? So to be healthy enough to make the most of life and to make that life last, and in training, you're not present. Like now it's starting to kind of cannibalize
Mm,
itself a little bit. And
mhm.
I think sometimes we forget that. If we overdo it, we're actually taking away from the whole reason that it exists to begin with. Jason, I got to say, so first of all, thank you for sharing even just a small piece of your story. For those that don't know, Any Given Day podcast was originally actually going to be called Any Given Day Stories, where I pulled out exactly this kind of information from inside the minds of folks who have lived these lives. And I tried to go a different direction. This last hour has absolutely reaffirmed that this is where this podcast belongs. This has been a learning experience. This has been fulfilling for me, and that is all because you are willing to dedicate your time and your story. And so I greatly appreciate it because both of those things are absolutely invaluable. And so thank you for that. And then not to put you on the spot, but to totally put you on the spot. What are your last words to close this podcast out?
Yeah. This is where I'll go with it. And I think you hit it. Any given day. You do not know what tomorrow brings. All you know is that you can be available for tomorrow. I recently commented on your one of your Instagram posts, and I said, "Be the frog, not the dinosaur." And to close the podcast out, that's what I challenge everybody. And I don't just mean that physically; I mean that at every level. Continue to evolve. Continue to be the best version and a better version of yourself. Allow those boundaries that you thought needed to exist or possibly exist, knock them down, man, and create new ones and never find the pinnacle and never find the peak until it's too late because you don't know anyway, you're already dead. So I'll close it down that way.
Damn, man. It's like you had that scripted or something. That's there's no better way to end this thing. Thank you, Jason, and thank you
Thank
to
you, Nate.
everybody listening.